In this video, I'm looking at the Tin Hifi T3 Plus single dynamic driver in-ear monitor. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. And yes, the T3 Plus. Oh, you know what? It kind of crept up on us. We knew it was coming, but suddenly, boom, it's here. And yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. So stick around and let's find out. Let's talk about this new IEM. Like I said, single dynamic drive. It's got a 10mm LCP or liquid crystal polymer driver. The price of the unit, by the way, is $69. Before we go any further, I'll really quickly show you what you get inside the box. Get this nice grey coloured inner box with a pretty fancy looking kind of a padded lid with a felt lining on it. Your documentation, of course. Normally the IEMs would be in there. You get this little fabric carrying pouch. I'm not a fan of fabric carrying pouches, but it's better than nothing for sure. And you get a pretty nice selection of silicone ear tips. You get 6 different types of silicones and 1 pair of foams. Now let's get to the IEMs, the actual IEM, and here they are. Pretty nice looking little IEM for a 69 bucker. You can see it's got this kind of a textured marble design on the faceplate with a nice gold Tin Hifi logo on there. The connectors of the day are 2-pin, which are my preferred method. I have a bit of a go hot and cold with MMCX connectors. I usually tend to prefer the 2 pins, but anyway, here's the shell. It's nicely built. It's got this translucent resin shells, pretty nice, pretty lightweight. The build quality is all nice. Left and right indicator on the inside of the shell there. You got your protective mesh cover on the gold colored nozzle. And that's about all there is to say about the physical build. It is a very comfortable IEM. I have gone through several multi-hour sessions with these with no hotspots or discomfort. And the cable that comes with the T3 Plus might look a bit familiar to you. In fact, this is the same cable that comes with the T5, the more expensive T5 model. And it's a oxygen-free copper cable with a glossy, smooth black PU sheath on it. And yeah, it handles well. There's no microphonics. It's nice and supple. It might look a little bit plain, but the components are all aluminium. They're really nice. It's got a chin slider as well. And overall, this is a pretty nice cable. Right then, how does the T3 Plus sound? And I gotta tell you, man, wow, I was not expecting what I heard for several reasons. First of all, it's got a pretty balanced sound signature. Now, it's not a neutral sound signature, which means sort of reference, no coloration, no emphasis on anything, but it's not that, but it is still balanced. And what I mean, it's got a slightly emphasized bass, slightly emphasized treble, but the mid-range is fairly forward too. So everything's a bit up front and it's kind of got a bold sound, but it is still balanced. Now I'm gonna break it down a bit for you. We'll start with the bass, and these have got a great bass on them. Really, really nice. I can hear similarities between this and the bass of the T5, the Tin Hifi T5, but for some reason I just didn't like the sound of the T5. It's a different story with this one. The bass it has that similar kind of authority and power to it, but it doesn't feel as overpowering. It doesn't feel tiring. It is a nicely weighted bass with good note size, good thickness, slam the punch, everything is there. Great sub-bass rumble, but it doesn't overpower the mid-range or the treble. It's very well controlled and it's nicely balanced with all the other parts of the sound spectrum. And being a single dynamic driver, of course, you get that great cohesiveness. So everything sort of comes together naturally. You don't have any sort of bad crossover points or anything like that, like you can get with some hybrid models. So nice and cohesive. Onto the mid-range now, and like I said, nice forward mid-range, good clarity, not ultra clear like something like the Hi-Vis MS2 here. It doesn't have that ultra clarity, but it has good clarity, and it sounds quite natural. The tone of the mid-range is really good. Male and female vocals sound nice. I will say that male vocals don't pop as much as female vocals. They blend a little bit in to the upper bass, but overall, yeah, vocals sound really nice. They're quite forward. Instrument separation in the mid-range is good. The clarity, like I said, is good. Detail throughout the mid-range is good. Like, vocals are nice and articulate. They have good texture, good detail in them. And by the way, the bass is nicely textured too. So overall, so far we're doing really good with the bass and the mids. So good so far. No, so far so good, if you know what I'm saying. And let's go to the treble now. And I love the treble tuning of this IEM. It sounds, oh, how could I explain it? It's a little bit similar to the Tin T4, I would guess. Actually, maybe I should have brought that to the table for a comparison, but it kind of reminds me overall, the sound signature and the presentation, it reminds me a little bit of the Tin T4, but I think this does it better, and it has a better bass, a more pleasing bass to my ears, and I really appreciate the treble, especially on this, more than the T4. Now the treble, it's lively, it's crisp, detail, it's pretty precise. I wouldn't call it edgy. Sometimes it leans a little bit towards edgy, but it never actually crosses that threshold of sort of discomfort. So it is lively, but at the same time it's smooth, it's nice and detailed, it's airy, the extension is good, the tonal balance in relation to the mids and the bass is good. Overall, it's just a very good treble. It's the detail retrieval of this earphone is pretty impressive. It is not ultra, micro details aren't ultra present like they are, for example, again on the MS2 here, but you do get a sort of a slightly more relaxed and natural presentation. And overall, these sound really, really good. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this is one of the best sub $100 IEMs of the year. And I will put it, I'm not sure exactly where it's going to sit yet, but it's probably in my top 3. I would say it's in my top 3 sub 100 IEMs. But all right, anyway, let's look at some comparisons now. We'll start with the one that everybody's going to ask for, and that is the Moondrop Aria here. Now, they're not too far apart from each other in terms of frequency response, particularly in the bass. They have a very similar bass curve on the graph. However, the bass on the T3 definitely sounds a bit more forward, a bit more powerful, and a little more textured as well. Now the Aria, as you might know, has a little bit more focus on the upper mid-range and lower treble. The T3 Plus has a slightly more energetic treble than the Aria. The Aria sort of focuses mostly on the lower treble range, and then it kind of falls off, and then it comes back up in the upper treble, but you don't really hear that. It's kind of mostly inaudible, but it does give it a nice sense of airiness and spaciousness, even though the treble is not that upfront. There's a little bit more upfront on the T3, especially in the upper treble, but like I said, it's not, there's no harshness to the T3 treble. Sometimes you think it's going there, but it never goes there. And because of that sort of more laid-back treble in the Aria has a little bit narrower sound stage, but it does have very good depth, and because it's got really good resolution and instrument separation, the sound stage never sounds crowded. It sounds quite organized, good spacing between instruments. But the T3 Plus is a little bit wider, a little bit rounder in the stage, with similarly good instrument separation and overall resolution. By the way, I forgot to mention the Aria here is $89, so it's $20 more than the T3 here. But I would say the T3 pretty much performs on par with it in most ways. Now here's the Hifi's MS2. This is a $79 IEM, so it's $10 more than the T3. It's got a brighter overall tonality, slightly less bass emphasis. It doesn't have as authoritative a bass as the T3 Plus. And on top of that, it's also got a more lively upper end or high frequencies. The treble is a bit more forward, a little bit more energetic. It's very detailed, great micro detail retrieval on this, but it is brighter. It might be a little bit fatiguing for some people. The T3 is a smoother listen, and it's got a bit more bump in the trunk, if you know what I mean. Bit more bass emphasis there, and I happen to like that. A little bit more bass is my preference. However, I do like the MS2 here. But remember, $10 more than the T3. And then we've got the Wizard HE01, which was another one of my top sub 100 IEMs this year. Now this one has more bass than the T3 Plus. The HE01 is quite a bass heavy IEM. It's not quite bass head. It's a good quality bass too. It's nicely textured. It's pretty quick, but it is more emphasized than the T3 Plus here. Now, both of these IEMs have pretty forward vocals, nice and up front, fairly intimate. The T3 is not quite as V-shaped as the Wizard here. T3 doesn't have quite as much bass, and the mid-range is ever so slightly more forward here on the T3 Plus. And the T3 Plus here has slightly more forward treble and better treble extension. So the sound stage on the T3 Plus is a little bit wider, but again, not a lot of difference in overall dimensions. But yeah, HE01, still a great IEM, $79, $69. And finally, we got the little underdog here. This is the Canera BD005. And this one only comes in at $49, so it's actually $20 less than the T3 Plus. You can see from the frequency response here, wow, look at that. These guys are really similar in terms of the graph, at least. I will say that although they look so similar, the T3 Plus has a more forward and powerful thumping bass. Now, I don't want you to think this is a bass head IEM. It's not. It's just got a healthy boost. It's a really good controlled bass, but it comes across a bit more forward, a bit more up front than the bass on the Canera here. In terms of the mid-range, very similar actually, both fairly neutral with pretty neutral note size, slight roundness on notes, so they sound natural enough with enough warmth in there. They're neither cold nor fat or too rich. In terms of the treble, the Canera here has a slight balanced armature timbre to the treble. I think the treble on the T3 Plus sounds a little more natural. It's a little bit stands out a bit more on the Canera here. The treble is a bit more forward relative to everything else. But overall, it comes really close in tonality and performance to the T3 Plus. Now, how would I go about my recommendations here? This is going to be highly subjective because they're all excellent IEMs, and really the one that's going to be the best, none of these stands out as the absolute best one. It's going to depend on the things that you like to hear. Now, the BD005 Pro here is so close in performance and tonality to the T3 Plus. This is a great option. If you're on a really tight budget and you don't want to stretch that extra $20, go for the Canera. It's a great IEM. Now, if you want a little bit more weight in the bass, the HE01 is a great option. Slightly more detailed, but slightly more V-shaped, but it is equally as detailed. It's really quite an impressive IEM, this one. But yeah, if you want a little bit more bass, go for the HE01. This also comes in a dark gray color now as well. It's called the HE01B, I believe. Now, if you like a brighter sound signature with a livelier treble, the MS2 will be for you. Super detailed, like micro detail retrieval. This is the best of all of these ones, but like I said, it might be a little bright for some people. However, it's another great IEM. And finally, the Aria. And yeah, well, what can you say? Moondrop just keeps dropping hit after hit. The Aria is still a great earphone, but this one's $20 less, slightly different sound signature, a little bit bolder, a little more upfront, a slightly denser sound, whereas the Aria has more of an ethereal presentation, despite having a fairly relaxed treble. But technically, I would say these perform pretty close to each other, pretty much on par with each other. Just, I can't really recommend either one. It's going to come down to what you're looking for. The T3 Plus has a little more bass. The Aria is a little smoother in the treble, if that's the sort of thing that you're looking for. So, you know, I'll just leave it at that. That wraps it up. That is the Tin Hifi T3 Plus, one of the best sub 100 IEMs of the year. Really, really good product. I would say if you are looking for something right now around that price, jump on it. If you don't want to jump up to the Aria, or, you know, for the other reasons that I mentioned, jump on these. These are a great buy, highly recommended. They're going on my recommended or my best IEMs list on the website as well. Go to check that out. Links in the description. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you have these? And are you going to go for the T3? Let me know. And yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Parfam audiophile style. And if you want to see more reviews like this in the future, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, see you later.